You know something, in Britain we're not very good with seasons. Our summer is a joke. It could be hardly called a summer really. It can be very wet, it can be quite cloudy, it can be very depressing. Our winters can be very mild and again very wet and soggy and not nice at all. And our springs can be very tumultuous and unpredictable and very windy and quite aggressive, so not very pleasant or good at all. But if there is one season that we can say that we get right, one season that I am proud of to live in Britain, it has got to be autumn. Autumn, or as my friends from across the pond call it, fall, because leaves fall on the ground, how very observant of you, is a very, very beautiful season here. The colours on the leaves can really, really come out, and you get a whole variety of different shades, which is ridiculously beautiful. Conkers start coming out, berries start coming out, and even apples and fruits are fully ripened. So it's a very comforting kind of a season actually here in England, and that's what I've tried to reflect on my fragrance collection this year. So I hope that you enjoyed this list with that in mind. The theme, of course, is comfort, warmth, and also discovery. You know, I've been really trying to find a lot more, a lot of new fragrances that I can show, really sort of beef up my fall collection. So there are some classics in here that I just simply can't let go of, they're too good. But there will be some fragrances in here that you may not have heard of, and I would love for you to discover them with me. So I hope you enjoy, and let's start off with number 10. So let's start off with number 10, and that is this. It's Quail by Powell. This is a leather-based fragrance. Of course, Quail is Italian for leather. The thing with this is that this is evidently inspired, or trying to be, a leather-based fragrance already, and that's Tuscan Leather by Tom Ford. So is this a clone? I suppose in a way it is, but I get something from this that I don't get from Tuscan Leather. Tuscan Leather is a very dark and brooding type of fragrance. It's very serious, but this one is lighter, it's brighter, and I'd say that I'd put that down to this has a lot less saffron, a lot less emphasis on saffron, and a bit more emphasis on the fruits, with this being raspberry. It has a bit more of a raspberry kick that gives it a more filled, kind of sweeter tone, and just kind of balances everything out. In Tuscan Leather, the fruit is kind of like in the background to just give it a tiny bit of sweetness, but with this one, the leather and the darker tones with the sweetness and the fruits are very, very balanced. So it's very pleasant, it's a lot more friendly, and it has a sort of a crispness to it, which really suits the colder type of weather, so I would recommend this to you. Number 9 is from the house of Ferragamo, and it is called Uomo. This fragrance could be the next big designer thing. Maybe not as big as 1 Million or Lamal, but maybe say Armani Code. It really could be a classic by the scent alone. But the thing that lets it down, of course, is the awful bottle design. It's really terrible. I don't like this at all, this weird wording. And not just that, but the cap is confusing. It makes me want to go like that, but it's not. It's one of those sprayer type things, and that's very early 90s, late 80s. It's quite dated. It doesn't really work. But as for the actual scent, which is important, the most important part, it's delicious. It's kind of like this woody, chocolatey kind of smell. It is using tonka bean as its main thing, but it's got this creaminess to it. Once it dies down, it has this kind of like very beautiful hazelnut cream kind of a smell, which is really, really beautiful. It is quite synthetic, but if you have a sweet tooth and you love kind of gourmand type of fragrances, and you don't mind your scents being just a little bit synthetic, this really could do it for you. I'm going to be doing a full review on this, but for now, it's a really wonderful fragrance. I'd go check it out. Speaking of chocolate, one of the kings of the chocolate kind of fragrance game is, of course, this guy, Dior Intense. I'm not going to go too much into this. I've already done a review on it. You kind of know my feelings on it. I do prefer Dior Homme, but here we are. Dior Homme Intense is on this list, and Dior Homme is not. It's a very sexy kind of chocolatey iris smell. It's very powdery. It's quite upper class. I love it. I still have my moments with it where I'm like, do I really like it? But we're too far in now. So yes, number 8 spot. It really does have, what I was talking about. It has that kind of comforting kind of smell that I like in autumn fragrances, but it does have a really nice bite with the iris. My number 7 spot is a really interesting fragrance. But it's got quite a long name. It's called Eau de Méchance, Le Convent de Menemise. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correct at all. And this is quite incredible because it really relies upon one note, but it uses that one note perfectly, and that is vanilla. And this is one of the greatest vanilla fragrances I've ever smelled. Apparently it smells like Spiritueuse Double Vanille by Guerlain. I have not smelt that. But this is an eau de cologne, which is not a very strong concentration, but just look at the juice. It's very dark, so that just shows you how powerful vanilla is in this. It's a very nostalgic and comforting fragrance in the respect of it's very familiar. It's a very familiar smell. It reminds me of my mother baking, or Easter eggs, actually. It reminds me a lot of Easter eggs, or treats, or chocolates, or advent calendars. It has a lot of that because it does the vanilla so well. For an eau de cologne, it's surprisingly deep and surprisingly thick. It's very interesting and very unusual. If you have, again, a sweet tooth, this is something that you should definitely check out. And if you're a big fan of vanilla as a scent, this is a must buy for you. Number 6 is from the house of Duetto, and it's called City Love. Say what you will about Duetto, it's a very underrated house, but their performance is some of the best in the business today. But it's this very sensual oud rose, very pleasant, nothing off-putting. People can gravitate towards this even if they don't like sort of too much of a musky smell. And it almost has like a strawberry kind of a scent with the combination of the oud and the rose. I would wear this for high-class events. I wouldn't actually. I would wear this for theatre going on dates, going out. This is a very sociable, night-out type of fragrance. Right then, top 5 fall fragrances. Now, let me tell you something. These are some of the best autumn fall fragrances that I've ever smelt and I've ever owned in my life. They do everything that I could possibly want out of an autumn fragrance. They're long-lasting, they're warm, and they're rather unique as well, which is good. We're going to start off with number 5, which, let me tell you, is actually quite a surprise. Number 5 is quite surprising, actually. It's from the house of Hugo Boss, and I wouldn't think that they would have made a top 10 fall list, and especially coming in the top 5 as well. But it is Boss Bottled Oud. This is fantastic. It's just so well done, and one of my favourite things about it is it's an actual flanker. And what I mean by that is that oud is the craze in fragrance at the moment. It's dying a death now, but oud was a huge moneymaker for the fragrance industry. So a lot of designer companies would make an oud flanker, an oud fragrance, and it was just a really generic oud smell. But this takes the DNA of the original Boss Bottled and uses it so well with a very, very good and rather natural smelling woody oud. The green apple from Hugo Boss Bottled with the cinnamon blends so well and almost balances out the woodiness, which creates one of the most wearable designer fragrances I've come across in quite a while. It is ridiculous how much I've been wearing this, actually. I really fell in love with it from the first time that I smelt it. I'm going to be doing a more in-depth review with Dave from the Fragrance Bros, but honestly, you should check this one out. It's very, very good and surprisingly delightful. Number 4, I'm not going to talk too much about this one. You knew it was coming. It's not a big surprise. It's from the House of Christian Dior. It's called Fève Delicieuse. I can't really tell you how much I love this. It is my current number 1 winter, and it's gunning for that position for 2017 as well. But it's just magical. It is just such a fantastic and beautiful fragrance. This now reminds me so much of Brighton, where I was a student studying film. It just reminds me of Brighton and of all my friends there and all of the good times that I had. And I would have to wear this quite a lot because it would get requested. People in Brighton really gravitated towards this. It's such a compliment magnet and an attention grabber. So, it's kind of turned into, for me, a love letter to Brighton, in a way. Number 3 is quite upsetting. It's quite sad, actually, because it is this guy. It's Thundergirl Au Extrême. My second favourite fragrance in the world, apart from Millésime Impérial. It has been reformulated. It is not the same juice, but it is. This is so personal to me. I don't know, if you were to bottle sort of my personality in the respect of, I feel as though I'm quite an old soul. I'm quite old-fashioned. I like old things. If you were to bottle that down, that part of me, that side of me, that aspect of me, it would smell like Thundergirl Au Extrême. It's a gentleman's fragrance. It's so beautiful. It's very sexy. It's so interesting to smell. I love it. I adore it. These next 2 were 2 of the most hardest fragrances that I've ever had to place in a list, because both of them were really, really gunning for that number 1 spot. They kept switching every so often, and it was very, very difficult. But there can only be number 1. But let's start off first with number 2. And these 2 really capture the sense of the art of fragrance and what I love so deeply about this hobby. They are not for everybody, especially number 2. But if you're really wanting to get serious, if you are into the more wacky and bizarre side of fragrances, but you also want something that's actually quite nice, some fragrances can just be ridiculous and out of touch, but these 2 are pure perfection. I'm going to start off with a fragrance that, to some people, it might just smell quite gimmicky and a bit kind of like basic, as in it just is what it says it is on the tin, but for me I get so much more out of it. It's called Espresso Royale by Sebastian. Now, for some people, they might just think it just smells like coffee, it just smells like espresso, and that be the end of it. But for me, I get so much more. I get a whole landscape, a whole story in my head. I get a beautiful independent coffee shop in Amsterdam or in Luxembourg in the middle of autumn, and there's spices and there is coffee, but there are herbs, and just the atmosphere is so rich. This is so warming. It is so rich in detail. It is absolutely phenomenal. There is nothing that I've ever smelled like this in my life. I cannot stress how much I am in love with this one. I will do a full review on it, but for now, just blows me away. Just completely, this kind of stuff, this kind of attention to detail blows me away. And finally, if you watch my reviews with Dave, you probably know what the number 1 is. You probably might have guessed it already. This, for me, is fall, autumn, whatever you want to call it, in a bottle. It has all my favourite things to do with autumn. It is so comforting, so interesting, and so unusual. It's called Kiste by Slumberhouse. Where do I even start with something like this? Peaches, fruits, dried fruits, hay, which is something that is quite abundant in autumn. I do get just this almost like a liqueur kind of smell from it. It has a bit of an alcohol, which I do love the occasional bourbon when it's colder. This is stunning. This is absolutely stunning. This is what it's all about for me, finding something like this. It's not like Espresso Royale, which is very volatile in its presentation of scent. This is very, very, almost kind of aggressive, but Keist is very loud. It takes over the whole room. 3 sprays, you're taking over the whole building, no matter where you are. But yet, it is like a blanket. It's like a very, very beautiful warm blanket. Fruits, hay, comfort, class, uniqueness. What more could you want? Go watch my review with Dava. But for real, this is the #1 fall fragrance for me. And I don't know, again, like with Fève Délicieuse with winter, it's gonna take something very, very special to take out. This is my #1. So there you go. So there we have it, my top 10 fall fragrances of 2016. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found some new fragrances to go and test. Or I hope that I reminded you of a few classics that maybe you haven't tried or worn in quite a while. Anyway, I'll be seeing you very soon, don't worry. But until next time, you know how it goes. I'm the Fragrance Apprentice, and I'm out.